Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Every Day's a Train Wreck. I'm your conductress, Marley Major, and as usual, I have an amazing guest for you here. And I'm just going to give you kind of a little bit of a snippet. Now, you guys have heard on here Viola Murone, our favorite Italian with the hot husband, right? And Viola introduced me to Adriana. Poor Adriana. And we were doing our retreat in Florida, and I was like, yes, I'm super excited. And Viola's like, okay, this other girl is working with me on it. And I was like, I feel so sorry for her because it's only taken Viola like 3 years to get used to working with me. And then I meet Adriana, and I'm like, at the retreat, I'm like, oh my gosh. And so she has this amazing complementary piece that she does with Viola. Viola does the Reiki and the crystals and the, violet flame and the Italian witches. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Adriana Keefe, and she's going to tell us what she really does, other than be the vester of the violet flame. I think one time I said that Viola was the keeper of the violet flame, and she lost her mind. That's very bad and inappropriate. So, Adriana, without further ado, you tell us your backstory, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am definitely not an Italian queen or an Italian witch, but I am a Puerto Rican one. So
okay,
that's going for me.
Spicy. We love this. We love the spice here on Every Day's a Train Wreck, right?
That's
okay, so
for sure.
Good. Yes. Good.
So I'm a human design expert and speaker, but I'm also a mom of 3 and a wife. I like to say my husband's pretty hot too. I think
good.
I've got that going too. And I really like to mix the science with the spirituality. So it's interesting that you picked up that my energy and my work was so complementary to V's, because hers is very ethereal. And I feel like the work that I do can really ground it and find that nice balance, the in between, if people need a little bit more scientific. Like I practice emotional freedom technique or tapping with my people and my clients, but I'm also a big human design educator and expert, which can be ethereal in itself, but there's also a lot of science that's now being proven behind it too.
Well, and I think it's okay. So I live in this, kind of odd world where, I'm well educated. I have my parents are well educated, no woo woo at all in that backstory. I mean, Mercury retrograde is oh my gosh, really? Are you kidding me? And yet I live my life by it, and all my kids know all about Mercury retrograde. But I do love data and I do love science. So I'll play all day long, with crystals, et cetera. And I'm not minimizing that. But I think part of the reason that I think that the kind of secret sauce that you bring to the table, as you say, is this. The other thing is you were training to be a vet, like a veterinarian, right? I mean, so It isn't as if you're selling, ho-hos on the road and got a 7th grade education. I mean, you were digging into the sciences and then kind of came up with this piece. So tell people, because for some people it's oh my gosh, how do you not know what human design is, right? And for other people it's wait, I feel what is that again? Is that astrology? So can you tell us what it exactly is?
Yes. Yeah. Human design is very up and coming, but there's still so many people who have no idea what it is.
Right.
And I like to joke it's like astrology on steroids, but it's so much more than astrology, because it combines all these ancient systems: astrology, Kabbalah, I Ching, quantum mechanics, chakra system, all of this into one system that, believe it or not, makes it more practical and easy to understand on a day-to-day basis. So what I was missing with astrology, which I always felt very interested in, but it never really changed anything for me in my life. What human design gives me is easy to understand day to day. This is how you actually heal yourself and come back home. This is how you hear your body's consciousness. Everyone can resonate with oh, my gut told me not to do that and I did it anyway, right? So we know that there's this consciousness that our body has, and we just need to start listening to it. And so that's what human design really opens up for us. It teaches us how to communicate with our body and how to live as the person we were designed to be instead of being the person that society has conditioned us to be.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks about that. Somebody hears this podcast, they're like, oh my God, this sounds great. I don't even know what it is, but it sounds cool and like I want to dig deeper. What happens practically? Do you give a blood sample? Where do you start with people? So walk us through kind of the process and then how human design enters into the data that you collect.
So if anyone's listening, you can download your chart right on my website. You need your time of birth, your birthday, and where you were born. And if you don't know your exact time of birth, just shoot me a message. That's something I can help with.
Okay, but pause. What's your website? Because I know they're going to be like, wait, I don't want to go to the end. What's your website? Or where?
AdrianaKeefe.com. Adriana with one N, Keefe.com.
Okay, got it.
You'll see get your chart right there.
Okay, keep going.
And this is what, when I was first introduced to human design, this is what blew my mind / made me resist it, because I was raised in a house that was Catholic, went to church, right? And I never resonated with that. I have a childhood filled with abuse. And I was like, why would this be happening to me if there's a God out there? So keep in mind, I had no sense of spirituality when I started my human design journey. I think that's how I bring so much science into it, because I had to, what you were saying, like you need to see like data and the statistic, like I need to see it come to life before my eyes, before I can believe it. Right. And then everything else evolved for me. But that's really the moment where I was like, how the hell can this know my birthday and pull up information about me that says exactly who I was as a kid before I shut down? That just like blew my mind.
And yeah, there's so many things to unpack here, because I guess what's jumping up for me is I was raised Catholic, still consider myself Catholic, still go to church every Sunday, still do my rosary. Probably the older I get, the more Catholic I get. The older I get, the more I feel like I need my faith and I'm grounded in my faith. Now, I know I've had a very different experience, certainly a lot of people. What's interesting to me is that kind of being in two totally separate spaces, like you not having necessarily the great experience and me having the great experience and craving it more. I'm still interested in human design and you are drawn to human design. So it's kind of a fascinating thing. It isn't like people only who have had bad experiences, or it just can be you want another level, right? You want to know how to know yourself better. Because I mean, I think for me, that's why I was attracted to, I guess we're always trying to fix something, right? And we're always curious, but it wasn't like I was going into it thinking, oh my gosh, I'm desperate to fix this piece. I've done that certainly with other things, but yet I got so much out of it. So how does it work kind of so universally?
That's really what's made me tap into this connectedness that's out there. And it's so interesting to look back on my life, because when I was in school for veterinary, I had to take an elective that I got thrown into because I took too long picking. And it was all about religion. I was like, are you kidding me? I don't want to learn about religions. But something huge I took away from that was that it doesn't matter. Every religion and spirituality boils down to the same understanding of a concept of an entity, of something divine that's bigger than us. So it doesn't matter what we choose to identify or not identify as.
Right.
We are all understanding that we're born exactly who we're supposed to be. We have a purpose here in life, all of these pieces. And it's just so interesting looking at it now. I do readings for people who consider themselves very Christian or very Catholic, also people who are agnostic. And this is literally why I have a community that is like church for the spiritually curious now. Because we all belong in the same room. We are not different. We are all people who are choosing to have faith in something bigger than us.
And I think are choosing to like want to have more meaning other than just, it was a great day. I got my Starbucks and paid for it with stars. I mean, you know, or I fit into my skinny jeans, or I have a great family. You know, I'm not putting the skinny jeans and the family in the same category, but like just more than even the kind of regular things we talk about. And so you get people's time of birth and all that. And first of all, why is that so significant? Why is the time of birth such a big deal?
Good question. So, much like astrology, it works where the planets were positioned at your time of birth.
Mm-hmm.
It sends an imprint. It's actually, again, one of the scientifically proven parts of this.
Right.
The sun and the stars and the planets all send a stream of what's called neutrinos
Yeah.
that pass through everything and pass into your body
Yeah.
when you are birthed out. If you
Okay.
wanted to go even deeper, the human design system recognizes that you also have an imprint about 3 months before your birth. But that's where the time of birth is so important because that's where you can tell where the planets were aligned
Yeah.
and how they imprinted you in that moment.
Okay, now wait a second. And I know you mentioned this to me before and I forgot about this. How is it imprinted 3 months before you're born?
Yep. Which
Okay,
is a
so
big
because
question to
at
get.
first I was going to say, like, oh, how do they know that 3 months before you even get pregnant? And then I was like, okay, duh, pay attention.
The
Before
same
you're-
question goes for 3 months before you're born because we don't ever know when you're truly going to be born, right?
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like retroactive then, that imprint? It would kind of
Yes.
have to be,
Yes, and so that's what started because I have a skeptical mind. I'm
right?
like, but how does that make any sense? What if you have a planned C-section or you have
Right.
an unplanned birth? And this is where I started learning about soul contracts. And so, from my understanding, what I've chosen to believe is that the universe always knows when you're going to be born. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can, as parents, pretend that you're choosing your kids' astrology and planning their birth around that, but really, there's a higher power that's at play here. That's
I
the only
tried to do that.
explanation that feels good.
Yeah, my oldest son was supposed to be a redheaded girl with green eyes born on Valentine's Day. And instead he was a boy 2 weeks late, refusing to come out, and a Pisces.
A
So yeah,
Pisces,
anyway,
yep,
keep
instead of an
going.
Aquarius.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so even if we plan it, if that wasn't the soul's contract,
Right.
then the baby won't be born. It's like being induced and it takes 48 hours still. Well, there's still something
They
that's
were
like,
all induced. All three of them were induced, and nobody was showing up at the right time. People were backwards,
yeah.
upside down. I had it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you give this information, and that's also why you guys might really think this is stupid, but I never could get my arms around. Okay, I get it that you get the time you're born, and then they say you want the place. Well, the reason you want the place is because if I'm born in LA at a certain time versus where I was born in DC, duh, it's 3 hours earlier in LA. So that's why you need the place, right? So that you know
Yep.
exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And so we give you this information and like tell us about this guy that kind of put it all together because this is sort of fascinating. I mean, isn't it have kind of like the I Ching and all these other things rolled into one?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a freaking jelly roll, an astrology jelly. You know what it's like? It's like a Cold Stone Creamery kind of mashup. It's like you take a little
Yeah.
bit of this, and then with alchemy, you have a totally different product that's called
Yep.
like Cold Stone Mad Moose or something,
Bad moose.
right? Tell us about the guy, and tell us about kind of the roll up.
This was yet another thing that I was like, yeah, okay. So this system is still very new. That's why so many people haven't heard of it. It was channeled, which
Mm-hmm.
was the first skeptical word I heard when I heard
Mm-hmm.
this, in 1987 by a man named Ra Aruhu. He has since passed, but
Who?
he
Who?
Ra Aruhu. That's
Okay.
not his birth name, but that's what he changed his name to.
So it's not L. Ron Hubbard.
No.
This is a different faction.
No.
Okay, got it.
And so he was in Ibiza and he, the story goes back and forth on whether or not he was on psychedelic or plant medicine or whatever. I don't really care. Either way, you can
Yeah.
still channel information. And
Yeah.
he channeled information that linked connectedness between all these ancient systems, astrology, Kabbalah, I Ching, all of these.
Okay.
He wrote all of this information down for 8 straight days. He said it was the most painful experience of his entire life. And when they were able to look back on it all, they realized they connected all of these ancient systems. Like other cultures have been using these systems to plan births, to plan weddings. Like this is not new material. This is just him putting it all together and seeing the connectedness between it all. Kind of going back to the idea of every faith and spirituality has the same belief at its root, right?
Right.
So he was able to boil all of that down and connect them all. So now we have one system that combines all of these incredible tools and systems and understandings of dates put into one.
So let's go through the ingredient list. It combines astrology.
Yep.
Then what's next?
Kabbalah,
Okay, then what's next?
I Ching,
Okay, then what's next?
Chakra system.
And then, oh, that's a good one. We got to talk about
Mm-hmm.
that. And then what's next?
Quantum mechanics.
And then is there anything else?
I believe you could probably say quantum physics too, but I'm not going to say definitely.
Okay. And then is it like a 7-layer cookie bar? Like, do they go in a certain order?
No.
Okay.
I mean, if you were to look at, there's something called like a mandala and the wheel, like you would see everything all mapped out there. But if you're actually just pulling your body, it's called a body graph. It's like your chart online. It's just going to show you like one image with basic information and how it all connects between. It won't say what's what.
Okay, but then it has like the part. So when we got our human design charts when we were on this retreat, what people were freaking out in the group about is because so like it's like a sitting person, right? From what I recall, the person sitting, not standing.
Well, it depends on it just looks like a torso and a head.
Got it. Okay. So the torso and the head, and then what was freaking some people out is because they were like blank spaces. So, and people are like, wait, like, am I missing? So what does it mean when you have like a black circle filled in a certain area versus it's blank?
Yeah. The centers, this is where the chakra system comes in. So the chakra system recognizes 7 centers. However, in human design, the information he connected was that in the year 1781, we went from being 7-centered beings to 9-centered beings. Little fun fact, there's an evolution happening again in the year 2027, so we're going to live through another change. So these are the energy centers. If you're familiar with the chakra system, it's just like that, except there's 2 that branched off.
Okay, so pause. Let's just give a quick recap of the chakra system. The top is the what?
In the chakra, it's the crown, but in human design, it's the head.
Okay, so
and then
go ahead. Next. So let's just first do chakras because remember you're talking ADHD girl. So let's go. So crown, and then what is it? Third eye.
Third eye.
Yeah, and then
throat.
Next. Yeah.
Heart.
Yeah.
Solar plexus.
Yeah.
Sacral root.
Got it. Okay, and then the human design system has all of those. They call them different things slightly, right? But they recognize those same, they don't think like your heart chakra or your heart one is like on your elbow. I mean, they recognize it's the same channel.
That's a great question. The way that human design talks about it is the heart center split off into 2. So we now have the heart center and what's called the G center.
Okay.
And then the solar plexus and sacral area, we also have a split with the spleen, splenic center.
Okay, and why did so that's kind of like a Martin Luther or whatever who put the nail on the door and said we're splitting. Was that Martin Luther? I don't know. So the heart and the spleen split so that why did they split? Do we know?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've ever found an answer to that.
Okay.
Why? And I mean, what they would say about the year 2027 is it's a natural evolution of life. Okay. So I'm assuming that that's similar to what happened in the 1700s.
So does that mean like the throat is going to split off to the, I don't know, your wisdom teeth or no, like in 2027, or we don't know what's going to happen in 2027?
We have an idea of what's going to happen. It has to do with the solar plexus. Okay. And the new human being born, being very much more emotionally intelligent and emotionally driven, not of the logical thinking brain, but more of the body consciousness.
Okay. So we don't think it's just like the first AI baby is going to be born or something like that.
Oh, Lord, I hope not.
Okay. So the heart and the spleen split. So tell us about those extra 2. So we go from 6 to 8, right?
Yes. So 7 to 9.
I'm not teaching this class. Okay, got it. Keep going. I thought no wonder I'm so challenged. I thought I only had 6 like chakral, whatever. I'm totally missing the whole thing.
And I do want to preface this with like, it doesn't matter if you use the chakra system or the human design centers when you're doing like a meditation or visualization. It's all about trusting that your body receives what she needs. Okay. So the heart in the human design system is the energy center of ego and willpower and self-worth. And the G center is said to sit in the middle. Okay. It's a little diamond in the middle of the chart. Okay. And this is more your sense of direction, your sense of self-love. So it still has to do with heart energy, right? But it's like, where is my heart pulling me? That comes more from like a G center. Where am I going in life? And then the spleen is it's a whole center that's focused on intuition, health, safety, sense of survival. And so it is split now different, where you'll see three kind of towards the bottom of the chart: spleen on one side, the sacral center in the middle, which is just like the chakra system, creativity, sexuality, and then the solar plexus on the other side, which is where we house emotions and moods and spirit consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm just still stuck on why the spleen. I mean, isn't the spleen like kind of one of those useless organisms or useless like parts, or is that the appendix?
Appendix is totally useless as far as we know.
Okay, anyway, I'm just glad the appendix didn't split off into something because I would have a problem with that. Okay, so that part of the heart that's split off and is the diamond, that's sort of kind of the central component, right? Because that's like the searching, like where you want more.
Yep.
So talk more about that.
The G center, diamond in the middle, is where you feel your calling or that pull to do something. And this is actually where they say the magnetic monopole sits within the human body. Okay. So most people have heard about the law of attraction and how things can be magnetized towards your energy and all of that. This is what is in your body, said to be, according to human design, within the G center houses that magnetic monopole. So this is why you tend to find that when you are feeling more aligned on your path, when you're feeling more fulfilled and satisfied and successful with the things that you're doing, not from an ego standpoint,
right,
not from societal standards, just from who you are and what you want in life, why things naturally get more attracted to you. That's the actual art of manifestation.
Is it that gets more, why they're more attracted to you, but is it also like why it feels easier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the reason I'm bringing this up is because I interviewed a guest yesterday, fascinating, totally separate subject, but it's interesting to me that you guys are basically saying the same thing. So I interviewed this guy, Joe Cornett, who was an investment, commercial real estate guy for literally a million years. And then, 2008 hits and he's like, okay, this is not going as I had hoped. Not that he was in love with that to start with, but he always kind of had tinkered around with films, and you guys can listen to the whole episode and get the backstory. But he had tinkered around with films, and somebody basically said to him, hey, listen, you should do like a modern version of these, older films that you've been fooling around with, which he did. And then he did like another one, and then he did another one. And next thing you know, he's at the London Film Festival winning awards. He's now got 7 movies or something. And I'm like, I was just blown away because, especially being in LA, everybody under their sun is a producer, a director. And I'm here like looking at the awards, and it isn't as if you can't go watch the movies. I mean, it's right. Like, I know the guy, I know people who were in it. And what he said that ties to what you're saying, to me anyway, was it was like commercial real estate. He was in it, obviously, to make a living. You can make a lot of money. He suited for it. But he said he just started playing with movies, not because he was like, oh, this is my next career. It was like, well, I might as well find something to keep me busy because I don't know what my next act is going to be. And then he starts doing this, and it literally was just like that. He started doing it and then won this award, and it would just like all took off. And I was like, what is the secret? Like, how? And his whole thing was, it was just always something he was interested in. He had the passion for it. I would go the next step and probably say along the lines of like those books, Blink or whatever, where when you're just naturally good at something, you can spend 1 billion hours on it. What is that whole thing of like you spend 10,000 hours on something and you get decent, Malcolm Gladwell or somebody. And he said it just literally like flowed out of him. And now all these movies except one happen to be a Western. And he's like, it's not exactly like I thought I would be doing movies. And he's like, I certainly didn't think they would all be Westerns. And I was like, well, then how did that come about? He's like, it was kind of a perfect storm. He's like, there are these different Western towns in California that you could film at. And it was like they were available. And then one of my friends who's beautiful, and Christina Robio, we've done a podcast with, she's also an equestrian, et cetera, and had done some in great shape. And he's like, all this stuff just kind of fell together with the people, with the locations, with the shooting, with the dates. It was the crash, then he said, of course, it started morphing, and now it's, COVID and all those things. And it was just amazing that he somehow just accidentally tapped into something that he was really good and and it just was so easy. And by the way, I'm not trying to minimize the fact that it wasn't a ton of work or so easy, like he had no challenges. It's not that, but it just all just kind of went, like it just went, and it took off. And it's funny that we're also talking about this because this podcast was exactly the same thing for me. Like, I mean, I think I told you guys on this retreat, for me, I was a guest on every person's podcast. I think I was a podcast guest, like literally 4 times a month. I kid you not. I was constantly getting booked to be on other people's podcasts. I mean, this was for years. And I would always be like, oh, you should have a podcast. And I was like, there's no way I'm in a podcast because I don't want to do the editing. I don't want to do the I don't want to do any of that. I'm fine just showing up to talk. I mean, I do that very unsuccessfully every day. But there's no way. There's all these other components, right? And then I almost signed up with this other guy. He's like, we should do one together, blah, 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 blah. I'll do all the editing. And I was like, yeah, okay. I even bought all the equipment. I did everything he told me. And then I don't know, something just didn't gel. And then finally I was a guest with this one guy on Mission Matters a couple months ago. And he was like, you're the best. And I was like, oh my God. It's like one of those things when you've heard it before, you're like, it's like, you're really good at this. And it was like, oh my God, pal, save it. And you should really do this. And I was like, yeah, okay, I know, thanks. And it's like, no, like, and then, but he got my attention because he was like, there's a revenue stream, like it was a real thing. And their company wants to be bigger than iHeartRadio. And they're this big conglomerate and they get 1 million downloads a month. And he was like, just take the next step with me. Like, let's just do a meeting. And I was like, whatever. And I had zero intention of doing it. I was like, I'm sure there's going to be it's going to be like some multi-level marketing thing or something, Anyway, I talked to the guy and it was like, everything was so easy. And then he's like, sends me the contract. And usually I tear these things to shreds. And I didn't. And then it was like, well, yeah, we just send you the QR code. And you do this and you do that. And the next thing was like, we were doing a sound check. And oh, by the way, the podcast training was going to happen to be the next week where like all these people are coming in from all over town. And I was going to meet all the other podcasters and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, oh, get a Calendly link. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay. So I got a Calendly link and then I can't even tape enough podcasts right now. Everybody's like, oh, I heard, I want to be on the podcast, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, we got to have an angle. But it's just so strange. The reason I'm spending so much time on this is because there have been so many things in my business and in life, like most of them, by the way, that have felt like pushing water uphill, right? That are just like a grind. And this was really one of the very first things that I have to say I practically have put no effort into. I mean, I show up and I do it, but
no force.
There's bingo. That's the word. There's no force. It's like, and the other thing that's really strange is I'm very, very close to my family and I'm very close to my friends. Like I'll beat the soapbox all day long that my girlfriends, especially since I've had many health things, have bailed me out 1,000 times, mentally, everything else. And what's so funny is I felt guilty because I've been working so much in the last few years. We had the pandemic that I was disconnected from some of my closest friends. I mean, just sort of naturally. Plus, my middle son just went off to college. So there was a lot. I was kind of just, getting into that next phase. But what's so funny is I've had these like a ton of my friends for 20 years or more. And I was like, oh, hey. And I would just reach out and be like, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? Because I genuinely thought, oh, there's some hilarious tale, that we had or encounter or something we had done. They're like, yeah, great. So I've reconnected this thing that's kind of been in the back of my mind bugging me, like amazing people that I've had in my life that I haven't spent enough time with because geographically and stuff after COVID, people moved. So I've like reconnected with them. I've had the best conversations like on the podcast. We are bringing up all these stories where, we're just like laughing hysterically. And then these people are still texting me. And then yesterday, as I mentioned, I was taping one and we were talking about one of our other old friends who's this private investigator, who's this really quirky guy. And next thing I know, I get a text like, hey, yeah, send us the link. Like, we want to do it. And there's this whole scandal going on in Pasadena that, he arrested the guy. And I was like, oh my God, that'd be amazing, right? But I mean, literally amazing stories. I just am so blown away by why are so many things so hard And then the things, it's kind of like the guy that you don't give two hoots about is the one that's crazy about you, right? And the one that you're like, oh my goodness, I'd give my right kidney or spleen or whatever we're talking about. Who could care less? So is that very big tangent and long-winded way of like, is that what human design kind of taps into? Like, did I naturally tap into some kind of human design component before I really knew what it was?
You naturally started to follow the things that made you feel really curious
Yeah.
and lit up by.
Yeah.
And human design can show you those things,
Mm-hmm.
but you were just naturally following the pull and the curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
It leads you to everything you were designed to do. You wouldn't be curious about something if you weren't designed to do it or to be here to add to it.
See, that's fascinating because that's basically what happened with this guy, Joe Cornette. So he was like, I'll just take an acting class or I'll just take a, like, because he was kind of interested. And then one other person said something. And how many times, like, if you're not attracted to something, people say things all the time and you're like, they go in one ear and out the other. It doesn't even resonate because it's like you don't care that much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little so that we can give people practical, like, advice and also continue to show them the benefit. So if you get your chart read, because I had a bunch of revelations when you read my chart, like, I mean, and you can talk about it. You said something along the lines of, because I was saying all these different business things that had happened that had been dramatic this year. It was a very challenging year in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And then you said, oh, well, here's why, or here's how and you went through this whole thing. And I was like, that makes perfect sense. So can you talk specifically about that so I can stop babbling, like about the revelation that I had once you read my chart?
Yes. Well, I want to preface with I channel when I read human design charts. So I don't always remember everything because I'm not actually like there.
Yeah.
But what I do very much remember about yours is that you had a 3-5 profile, right? Which was all trial and error. And really
hilarious because I totally forgot that it was a 3-5 and that, I mean, yes. I can check my stuff and the trial and error part. Yes. But it's just so funny, especially based on how I just recounted this for everybody, having forgotten that it's literally the trial and error chart. Okay, keep going.
Yes, exactly. And so, I mean, a lot of what our own problems are is that we're stuck in comparison. We're stuck in doing things the way society tells us to. But what I'm hearing from you is when you were kind of like, fuck society, I don't want to look this way. I don't want to have to worry about this. I just want to do something that feels good for me.
Right.
Things just naturally started flowing.
Right.
That is, I mean, that's how people who don't know about human design have naturally just risen to their gifts because they're deciding to be bold and to say, I'm going to do the things that matter to me, not to everyone else, which takes time. It takes courage. It didn't actually officially happen for me until maybe a year and a half ago, really clicked on. Mm-hmm. And then everything, just like you're talking about with your friend, my entire new rebrand that just happened, everything came to me. I barely had to pay for any of the photography, for any of the sales pages. I didn't have to fucking do anything.
And we're so used to doing everything, right? I mean, you have kids, I have kids. Like, I'm just so used to, oh, let's do this and let's do this. And it's like Christmas and Santa Claus aren't going to come down the chimney if I don't like tug his legs, and help the dude out. So is that the ultimate benefit, do you think, of getting, so I mean, people kind of come at it like a sales funnel, I would assume. They sort of come at human design probably for a lot of different reasons, right? They're wounded, they need a change, they're bored, they got dumped, they lost somebody, whatever. And they're seeking something or they're curious about something. And then would you say that's the biggest benefit? It sort of teaches you how to like know yourself so that you can get in the flow more easily? Or what would you say is kind of the core?
Surface level, yeah, manifestation, co-creation. I hate the word manifestation. It's so mainstream right now. But yes, things happening more easily.
Okay.
But what I really believe is the gift that human design brings to us is being a healed person. Because that's what human design did for me. It saved me from years and years of trauma that therapy could only neutralize, but never taught me really who I was. And I just felt like a shell of a human. It taught me who I am. And I've developed other somatic practices like tapping to calm my nervous system, to regulate my emotions, and to heal from the inside out. When you are more healed, everything else happens more naturally.
Okay. And that was what I was going to say. So that's kind of the big picture of it, is that if we're, kind of going back to something maybe more simplistic, which is that like hurt people hurt. So if you're healed and, it's always like, I think of this girl that's in my daughter's class, and it's just hilarious to me because this girl, she's envied by many people for all kinds of different reasons. But I swear to you, this girl, and I've known this girl since she was like 3 years old, she could give two hoots. And I'm like, oh my God, I would be wounded. And I'm a grown freaking woman, right? And this chick is just, she just smiles and nods. I think it's just because she genuinely is like, haters gonna hate. I mean, that's kind of her thing. But I'm like, I know that, but she just doesn't really care. And to me, I just say to my daughter, it's magic. And my daughter, I think, is kind of like, okay, I get it. Yeah, but why? And I'm like, because it's so freeing. And then guess what? She's the least gossipy person in the class. She's and would have all the dirt. Like, she's in the position of the moms know everything. But it doesn't interest her. There's no joy in it because she's not trying to make herself look better, or there's no itch for her like that to scratch. She's just kind of living her best life. And it's really admirable. So if we get to the point where we scratch whatever itch it is, heal, we're trying to heal, then not only are we not lashing out at other people, presumably, but then we can actually give something better to the world, right?
1,000%.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think one of the things you said with my 3-5 trial and error thing, which really, I have to tell you, really helped me. And I didn't go into that. I want to just really emphasize to everybody who's listening, if they're like, they just stumbled upon this episode, or you are exactly where you're supposed to be, as cheesy as that sounds, it was part of the workshop. And I was excited because I love this stuff.
Validate
I need to fix this or something, which is, again, hilarious because I'd had a really rough year. When I got into the session, then I was like, I never shut up, right? Oh, then this and this and this. I came up with 10,000 things to fix. But when I said to you, like, when I kind of thought, okay, like, what am I doing here? How can I get the most value? And I said, listen, and probably a lot of people can relate, where you feel like there's some years where you just get knocked down, right? And you just get knocked down, and then you get knocked down again. And you're like, dude, I can't come up for air to save my freaking life. I mean, it's mind blowing, right? And that was the kind of year I had. It was like a lot of things that I even said to you. I was like, I should have known better. And I got hoodwinked. I got hoodwinked in business. I got sold out by a couple friends, quote, in friends. It was like all these different things that I was like, man, I cannot get out of this to save my life. And then for you, it was like, oh, well, let me tell you why. And you're like, and then, so go into that. Kind of, about the 3-5, you don't have to try to remember what you told me, but
yeah, no, I mean, it makes so much sense because you had a year of a lot of challenges, a lot of like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, because you had that moment of, this isn't right for me. I need to figure out my new path.
A lot of spaghetti being thrown at me, not just me throwing the spaghetti, just to clarify, because a lot of people know me much better than you do. And it's very important for you to realize I tossed a few strings of spaghetti,
noodles.
But for the most part, it was coming my way.
Yep. Well, that's also just like a natural growth phase, a transition that we go through in our evolution of life. And you were choosing to step into it instead of repress it. So kudos to you for that.
Okay.
So everything that you're like, I'm starting this podcast and I'm writing this book, and the
new book, ironically, which is so funny because this morning, this new book is freaking due like yesterday. Ooh. And I'm editing it, the final right now, so that it can come out in the spring. But it's just funny that you just happened to bring that up. Literally what I was doing this morning. Keep going.
And then you started talking about how everything the podcast is going to be about and the book is going to be about is teaching people about the messiness that you've been through and how to do things better. Right. That's literally your archetype according to human design, which is the 3 and the 5. The 3 is someone who's very experiential. You take all the risks, you fail a lot, but you're also the type of person that is designed to fail a lot because most people won't actually take the action at all. So you succeed a lot too.
Yeah, because you kind of were saying, like, I think a little bit, or what I interpreted was, it's like I'm kind of junkyard doggish enough to actually fall down the stairs like a million times. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
keep going.
And then the second part of your profile is that line 5. It's that someone who makes things practical, simple, easy to understand. How do we systematize this? How do I put
Yeah,
this into a structure? So
right.
everything that you've been learning and taking action on and finding failures and successes with, you're naturally designed to want to share with the world around you and teach
Yeah.
them how to do things better.
And that really resonated with me. And maybe some people who are listening to this maybe don't have my exact challenges, but maybe it'll resonate with them where they just feel like something is off or they can't figure out why a pattern keeps, like, I looked at it as like this pattern that keeps happening to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was always looking at it as a sort of a negative thing, like I should have been sharper, I should have known, I should have. But what gave me a lot of comfort after you and I talked was, it's sort of like when you're a mom and you make a sacrifice for your kids, right? It's like you're making a sacrifice for your kids so you don't notice the sacrifice as much because you're like, at the end of the day, it's worth it, right? I'm going to do anything for my kids.
Yeah.
So I think with what helped me was after so much of like churning in my brain and being like, God, what am I doing wrong? It almost flipped the script so that after I talked to you, I was kind of like, maybe none of it is wrong. Like it almost all felt like it all makes sense. It was all for a reason. I'm never going to really just be sitting on the couch eating bonbons anyway, as fabulous as, a bag of Fritos 7 days a week sounds to me. And it put it into the perspective like, oh, okay, if I can sort of take this kind of garbage and make it into a wool sweater or spit it out into something that's a blanket for somebody else, well, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're
like
talking
approaching it, being
totally
like, I can't wait
different.
to tell people
Right.
how this ended up working. Okay, this is going to work. Like really enjoying the experience. Much easier said than done. I know.
You're right.
Because most people behind the scenes, they're going through it and they won't talk about it. Well, so you're over here thinking you're such a failure. Everyone else gets it so easy.
Right.
But they don't share all that shit. And you do.
Well, that's, ironically, obviously having a podcast called Every Day's a Train Wreck. And that kind of came to me, and it came to me for personal reasons because, for people who have heard my kind of backstory was that I grew up with everything's supposed to look perfect and you get married and you have 2.2 kids and, you have the house that never has a higher loan to value than this or that. And here's, ding dong me would get overextended and forget to pay her property taxes. And I mean, like every dumb thing on the planet. And you just feel like you're an idiot. And then finally, when I was going to do this podcast, I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to call it something cool. I'm not just going to call it like Marley Major Talks Today. But what was so funny is that when I would tell my friends or clients, some of these people, you would literally laugh if I told you who I said this to, because these are some blonde-haired, blue-eyed, very wealthy, beautiful. I can think of one right off the top of my head. And she's like, oh my God, I can't wait to listen to that because every day in my life is a train wreck too. And while it's really funny because it's like a series of really, like you and your Maybach or whatever had to get a tune-up today. But in everybody's minds, we all feel like there's some part of like a train wreck, or maybe it's that whole thing tapping into, like with women, that what do they call it? The fraud syndrome or the...
Oh, imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. So it was really funny to me. I was like, well, I know why I feel like my life is a train wreck, and it's probably pretty obvious to people that it's a train wreck. But as soon as people, to me, who had it totally together, said, oh my God, totally resonate with that. And I was like, how? You don't have a train. They're like, what are you talking about? And everybody would kind of have the same reaction. Like, what are you talking about? Of course I do. And it's what you're saying, that just because somebody doesn't say they are having a horrendous day and are faking it through so that their kids don't get stressed out, right? Or their sick mom in the hospital doesn't get more worried than she needs to be, it doesn't mean that we aren't all kind of working on something in our heads, right? Or, oh, I should have, or, oh, I could have. And when you said, oh, a classic 3-5, I was like, oh, then now I'm in. Because then I was like, yeah, great, because I can then have podcasts called Every Day's a Train Wreck. And then ironically, the working title of the book was called Whatever You Do, Don't Do This. And it's now called Epic Face Plants, basically what not to do in business and in life. But what's so funny is that when I was talking to the publisher, we were talking about, like we were getting down to final time and we were going to have to do cover art and stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of like, but then it was like I don't even think it was a full week when I face planted literally off my horse, like broke my helmet, face plant. And I was just like, oh man. So I said to Viola in my last reading, I was like, can you like clear my juju a little bit? Because I do have a podcast called Every Day's a Train Wreck. Doesn't mean I want to get a crashed out train. I did say epic face plants. I did face plant. Like, can we tell the universe to just lighten up just a little on the literal, manifestation? But I guess this is just going to turn into kind of an infomercial for you of my own self-reflection that the stuff does really help. It is a huge, I don't want to just say piece to the puzzle. I want to say you kind of deliver like the last pieces of the puzzle that we all struggle with, that are kind of like everything is white or something, and you don't know where to put it because you put all the edges around it and you've put all the obvious ones together. And now you're just left with these pieces that you've got to fit, and they're the hardest last ones. And to me, you sort of unlock it.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate hearing that the way that you just said it. That's really beautiful.
Because it's, for me anyway, it's a hard way. Like human design is sort of a difficult thing to get your arms around, and it makes sense, right? Because you're saying it's new. And astrology, we kind of know, and people go, oh, yes, yay or nay. But that's sort of it's like a giant aha moment, but it isn't just one aha moment. It's like all of a sudden you take these pieces over here that you're convinced were packed into your puzzle by mistake, because there's no way they could possibly fit.
I resonate with that.
Right? How many times? I can't even tell you so many times I'm like, clearly I got the duplicates, and because these do not go anywhere. I've tried 100 times. They don't go anywhere. I've walked away from this puzzle. They still don't go anywhere. Right? But it's all of a sudden, like, it just, everything sort of takes shape and you're like, poof.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, okay, now I get it. And so how else do you help people make transformations? Do people come to you for just personal reasons, or do they come to you for business, or is it for their families, or is it for both? Like, how does that shake out?
All of the above. I've done everything from business to like personal, like what am I doing with my life, to relationship readings and how do I communicate with him more.
Mm-hmm.
I would say at the root of it all, it's just we're all longing to feel understood and to feel validated in the things that we're naturally interested in. We want to know that that we've got this.
Yeah.
And we need someone to tell us, to let society go away.
Yeah.
And to focus on the things that your body wants to naturally do.
And that we're not too far off the path, I guess. Because to me, like when I think of getting lost, and I remember getting lost one time when I was little, and it absolutely terrified me. Oof. And part of the fear of it was that I felt I was so far away from where I was supposed to be. Now, later we figured out I wandered off, but I really wasn't that far. You know what I'm saying? And so to me, it's kind of like, as long as we know, like it helps us affirm or reassure us that sure, there's things that we can fix or there's things that we can tweak. But just the fact that you're kind of looking into it tells us that we're not that lost. Okay.
And it's like giving you words to a feeling that you can't understand what the feeling means.
Right. And then when all of a sudden it feels like, because I think to me, despair or worry or anxiety is because you feel it's unknown, right? It's unknown. Every aspect of it is unknown. You don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know how deep it's going to cut. You don't know who it's going to affect. You don't know all those things like the boogeyman, right? But it's once you can start going, okay, and more clearly define it, it then becomes like a problem or something that you could systematically solve.
Yeah. Which, of course, your line five is like, give me the structure, give me the system. I just want to know what to do.
Well, yeah, because that goes back to ADHD. So I don't know if Ruhu or whatever was involved in ADHD, but there's a definite component to that. Now, one of the other things you've talked about, which resonates with me, is when you're talking about anxiety. And I am constantly struck post-COVID with a couple things that seem disparate, but for some reason I think they're connected. And one of them is post-COVID, kids really, I think, got thrown. I mean, adults got thrown too, right? It went a lot longer than I think a lot of us thought. And we were cooped up, and it was just weird learning and communicating with Zoom. And then from that, we have so many people, like the mental health issues have seemed to have skyrocketed, like the suicides of these kind of 20 somethings. Yeah. And then this piece that I was going to say that seems, but maybe it's not, is this rise of influencers. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? Because we were at home with COVID forever. What do? You start to make your little videos and whatever, and then that takes off, and now we're out of COVID and you're an influencer. The part that I don't understand is half the world wants to be an influencer, and you're putting this content out and you're getting all these followers, but then so many of these YouTubers or TikTokers or whatever are killing themselves. And everybody says they didn't see it coming. Like, they supposedly have this great thing. They're making $1 gazillion and they're in their bedrooms, creating content. There must be plenty of hidden anxiety, right? You don't just kill yourself overnight without thinking about it or without some pretty deep stuff. And so the human design piece helps kind of get to the root, like we've talked about. But another thing you mentioned is the tapping, which I find fascinating. And I was doing tapping a while ago with this yoga group that CNN, I think, later said was a cult. And I was like, oh, awesome. Thank God. That's the only total snake pit I didn't fall into. But tell us, kind of as we wrap this up, about how people can use tapping, or how, if they're not ready to jump into human design, how could this kind of be a cool first tool?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge what you were just talking about with the influencers and with the rise in anxiety and mental health. And what I see coming through is, one, COVID sent most, if not all of us, on this path of like, holy shit, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
Because we had so much introspective time.
Right.
And also, so many people, the majority of the population, is looking for recognition for their unique talents and gifts. And so maybe they take that on, realize that's really not the life they wanted. They still feel very empty and unfulfilled, that can't fill that hole. So we're all longing for some sort of recognition for something. And I just want to validate anyone listening that that's very much what you're supposed to be having, like, feelings of.
Right.
With tapping, when I first started my human design journey, they call it a human design experiment because it's really an experiment with your energy. I was noticing that there was a lot of educators out there teaching me how to be a certain way because of my type or my design or whatever. And this is who you're really born to be. And then my body reacted very negatively. Like,
in what way?
So best example, my profile line is a 4, which means the social networker, the opportunist. I'm designed to have a huge social network. I'm designed to be the person that everyone goes to for all the things. Meanwhile, that was me as a kid, me in high school. I had like 2 friends. I shut down. I didn't talk to anyone. So when I learned this, I was like, that's wrong. And then when I tried to implement it, my body was terrified. I was having chest pains, high anxiety, shaking, increased heart rate. And all of this, I realized, was a big struggle I had with the human design community online, because no one was teaching that you can't just tell your brain to be this version of you with a very dysregulated nervous system. So I started studying the nervous system, and I started using these tools like tapping and breath work. And tapping has been the one that's by far made the biggest imprint on me. That's the only thing, including medication, that's ever gotten me out of an active panic attack.
What do you do? You start like freaking out and you just start like tapping in the grocery store line? Like,
yes, I tap everywhere. I tap when I'm driving. I tap in the shower. I tap if my kids are overwhelming me. And now at first it was harder for me to understand my body was reacting because I was so dissociated from my body. So it took it a full-fledged panic attack for me
Right.
to understand I needed to do something. Now I'm so deeply connected to my body, I can feel the moment that I tense or that my heart goes a little bit faster or whatever it is. So it's much easier to calm my body down
Because
because
you're
I'm
like nipping it in the
connected.
bud. You're not in full blown like tornado mode by that
Yep.
point. You're just like a
Yep.
light wind has blown.
Exactly. Yes.
And then where do you start tap? Like, do you
Yeah.
tap in certain places or how do you know where to tap?
There's a lot of points that you can tap. However, there's basic ones that I really love. Brad Yates on YouTube. He has
Okay.
hundreds of videos and he's been like the most established EFT practitioner that I found that I
Really?
like. So I started
Shout
using
out
like
to
his
Brad.
videos.
Okay,
Shout
got
out to
it.
Brad. He's so good. I started using his videos. And so there's points that you can just cycle through on like the head and the face, the chest, under the arm. I also love the wrist points. If you were to go deeper into EFT, there's finger points, there's eye movements, but you don't have to worry about that. You can literally just do the basic tapping points. You
Like, what
can.
makes you look the least crazy? Like, I mean, like if you're having a full blown panic attack and you're in the grocery store and you're like going under your armpits and they're like, did the gorilla get loose from the zoo? Like, what, you know? I mean, so what are the emergency tapping points that might provide some relief until we can get to which Bates is it? Ryan Bates?
Brad Yates.
Brad
Yates.
Yates. Okay, Brad
Yeah.
Yates. Got it. So until we can get to
So
Brad, where do we tap?
it's going to be different for everyone. What I will say is my favorite are it's the chest,
Yeah.
like the heart space and the wrists.
Okay.
But you can also tap on any part of your body that you feel like is shutting down or tightening or causing you stress and just let your body be your guide. If you feel like you have that sort of connection where you're like, oh my God, like this side of my hand, this just like, I need attention there. Great.
Yeah.
You're tapping on the side of your hand. That's called the karate chop point.
Okay, so let me ask a question about letting the body guide you. So I have one of those like spiky balls, or sometimes people use tennis balls or whatever and they roll their feet on them,
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so I've had one of those. I've used them off and on, but I fell off my horse. I have all these back issues now, blah, 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 while I'm kind of trying to recover. And I was very like, where's that spiky ball? I want to run it under which is kind of a weird thing to all of a sudden just be like, wait, where is that thing? I need to do that. Anyway, when I did it, it was so painful. I mean, I did it with socks. I didn't even do it barefooted. And it was not painful everywhere, but there were certain parts. And of course, then I Google the, reflexology chart and I look at it and it's like, oh, that's your back. That's your, so it's like, okay, that totally makes sense, right? And I would do it. But I actually would feel some relief, no question. But what's interesting is afterwards, like later in the day or whatever, those points on my feet that hadn't been, because remember, my feet weren't hurting. I was just attracted to doing it because I'd done it in the past. There were points on my feet that started aching and felt like they were a marble, right? And I just kept thinking, oh, I got to go back with that spiky ball. But I want to just emphasize, like, it wasn't because I was having foot issues. So is it all of a sudden just cluing me in to say, hey, listen, you better jump and those points on my feet need attention? Like, is that kind of similar to what you're saying with the karate chop piece?
That's your intuition. Yeah.
And,
we're taught to question intuition, right?
Right.
So if you were to like logically be like, this has nothing to do with my feet, why would I need that? And you pushed it away, you would have found no relief.
Right. Got it. Okay. Interesting. Because, I just keep wanting to go back to it. And there are definitely certain parts that are absolutely loosening up. But it's,
Remember, the body has a hugely aware consciousness. We are just starting to tap into it.
I love it. Okay, well, what are some parting words of wisdom that you would like to leave with people? And then most importantly, tell us how they can find you and connect and follow up.
I think the last thing you just said is a really great mic drop moment of your body was literally calling to you, saying what she needed. If we just stop ignoring those whispers, imagine what could happen.
Okay.
And I would also say that everything you're naturally feeling curious about, even if you don't give a shit about human design, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole or whatever, what if you just started following the things that you felt really interested in and started spending the time doing that? Things will unfold for you because you're designed on purpose, literally, to do the things that you want to do.
So whether it's gardening or, I want to take a watercolor class or whatever, it's just kind of like Joe Cornette. yesterday with is, oh, I don't know what else to do, but I like movies. I'll just take that class.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So you sort of, it's something, in business, we talk about corridor thinking where you're picture going down this hallway and your goal is like the door at the end of the hallway. But the benefit of corridor thinking is like if the goal is the door, and sometimes you don't even get to the door, but something else and another door in the hallway or something else caught your attention, that the thing is if you hadn't been headed for that goal, you would never have found whatever it was you were ultimately supposed to find. So I think that's terrific advice. So then one more time, how can people find you? Are you on Instagram? Should they go to your website? Both? What are your...
Yeah, my website has all the info. I'm also on Instagram, but my full name was taken. So I'm Audrey Keefe there, Adri Keefe. And my community is themagneticrebellion.com. And the podcast is the No BS Human Design Podcast.
I love it. Well, I cannot thank you enough for being here with all of us. And I can't thank all of you guys enough for listening. So if you haven't already, please, please, please follow the show, share it with a friend, like it 5 stars, comment.
Leave a great review.
Leave a great review, please. Thank you. I've got another one that's got to go to college. So please help me pay those bills. So I can't thank you enough. All right, you guys, we will see you next week. Have a great one. And thanks for being such an awesome guest.
Thank you.